Shattered promises, the rain pelted against the windows of Westridge University's library as Camila Hernandez hunched over her economics textbook. Her fingers traced complex graphs while she whispered formulas under her breath. She barely noticed when someone slid into the chair across from her. "You know, most people are at the Sigma Phi party right now," Ethan Parker said, his voice carrying that confident lilt that had first drawn her to him 2 years ago. Camila glanced up, ducking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Some of us actually want to graduate, Ethan, and some of us know how to balance work and play," he replied with that crooked smile that still made her heart flutter despite everything. "Come on, 1 hour. The Richardson proposal isn't due until Monday." She hesitated. Things had been strained between them lately. Ethan's internship at his father's investment firm had changed him not dramatically, but in subtle ways that unsettled her. The way he casually dropped names at parties, how he'd started referring to her hometown of Pinewood as quaint with that slightly condescending tone. "Fine," she relented, gathering her books. 1 hour.
Oh.
The party was in full swing when they arrived at the sprawling fraternity house. Music throbbed through floorboards as students danced and shouted over plastic cups of dubious contents. Ethan immediately found his crowd, the future finance brothers, as Camila privately called them. She hung back, watching as he slipped effortlessly into their circle. "There he is," shouted Trevor, slapping Ethan's back. "Thought you were stuck with library girl all night." Camila stiffened, but forced a smile when Ethan glanced her way. "Speaking of which," continued another voice, Brandon, whose father owned half of downtown Chicago, "how's the charity case going, Parker? Still playing mentor to our small-town girl?" Something in Ethan's expression shifted. She expected him to defend her. They'd been together almost 2 years. He knew about her scholarship, her night job at the campus cafe, how she'd worked twice as hard as anyone to be here. Instead, he laughed. "What can I say?" Ethan shrugged, lowering his voice, but not enough. "Some projects are more extracurricular than others." The group erupted in laughter as Camila stood frozen, the plastic cup crumpling in her hand. "Seriously though, Ethan," continued warming to his audience, "Cammie's sweet, but let's be real. She's just a small-town girl with modest ambitions. Nothing wrong with that, but we're talking different leagues here." The words cut through her like glass. She'd shared her dreams with him, her business ideas, her vision for financial technology that could help people like those from her hometown. He'd called them cute then. Now she understood what he'd really meant. Camila set her cup down carefully. No dramatic scene, no tears. Instead, she walked straight up to the group, her chin held high, despite the burning behind her eyes. "Excuse me," she said calmly. "I need to borrow Ethan for a moment." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the night air cool and damp. "That was quite a performance," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Come on, Cammie, they were just joking around." "No, they weren't. Neither were you." She looked at him really, looked at him and wondered how she'd missed the warning signs. "We're done, Ethan."
Oh.
Over some stupid comments? He looked genuinely surprised. "Don't be so sensitive. It's not about sensitivity. It's about respect." She stepped back. "I might be from a small town, but my ambitions, they're anything but modest, and I won't waste another minute with someone who can't see that." He reached for her arm. "Camila, you're overreacting." "No, I'm finally seeing clearly." She pulled away. As she walked across campus that night, something crystallized within her. Ethan's dismissal had unknowingly planted a seed of determination that would grow stronger with each passing year. She would prove him wrong, not for his sake, but for her own. Little did either of them know that their paths would cross again. In circumstances neither could have imagined, that rain-soaked night. Separate paths, the years after Westridge University unfolded with relentless momentum for both Camila and Ethan, though in vastly different directions. For Camila, graduation day marked not an ending, but a beginning. With her economics degree in hand and her business plan meticulously refined through for sleepless years, she stepped into the world with purpose. Her first job at a small financial technology startup in Seattle paid modestly, but the experience was invaluable. She worked tirelessly, arriving before dawn and leaving long after sunset, absorbing everything she could about the industry. You're going to burn out at this pace, warned her colleague Diane. Finding Camila still at her desk at 9 p.m. on a Friday, Camila looked up from her laptop, where she'd been developing a prototype for a mobile banking application specifically designed for underserved communities. "This isn't just work for me," she explained, gesturing to her screen. "This is my vision taking shape." By her second year, Camila had secured a junior executive position. By her third, she'd saved enough to leave and launch WealthBridge, her own financial inclusion platform. The early days were brutal, working from a converted warehouse space with unreliable heating, living on instant noodles, and facing rejection from investor after investor. "Your concept is admirable, Ms. Hernandez," said one venture capitalist, sliding her proposal back across the table, but perhaps too idealistic for the current market. Rather than becoming discouraged, Camila refined her approach. She secured a small business loan and focused on building a pilot program in 3 rural communities, including her hometown of Pinewood. When the program showed promising results, investors began to take notice. "What makes WealthBridge different?" she explained during a critical funding pitch for years after graduation. "It's that we're not just offering financial services. We're creating economic empowerment through accessible technology." The funding came through. Within another 2 years, WealthBridge had expanded to 47 states. With international partnerships developing in Latin America and Southeast Asia, Camila's modest startup had transformed into a corporation. It's valued at over $200 million. With herself as CEO, Fortune magazine featured her in their 40 Under 40 issue, calling her the future face of inclusive fintech. She rarely thought of Ethan these days. For his part, Ethan had followed a more traditional trajectory, though not without challenges. His father's connections had secured him a position at Meridian Capital, one of New York's established investment firms. He moved into a sleek Manhattan apartment, bought designer suits, and settled comfortably into the life he had always envisioned for himself. "Parker, the Donovan account needs attention," his supervisor would say, and Ethan would handle it with practiced efficiency. He was good at his job, analytical, persuasive, and polished. He rose steadily through the ranks, becoming one of the youngest vice presidents in the company's history. But beneath the surface, something was missing. The work, while lucrative, felt hollow. The endless cycle of client meetings, financial models, and quarterly projections left him restless. During rare, quiet moments, he found himself remembering conversations from college specifically. Camila's passionate descriptions of how financial technology could transform lives. 5 years after graduation, Ethan made a decision. He approached his college friend Trevor, now working in software development, with an idea. A platform that democratizes investment opportunities, Ethan explained over drinks at an upscale Manhattan bar, making venture capital accessible to everyday investors while connecting them with promising startups. Trevor was intrigued. "That's a major regulatory challenge." "Which is why no one's cracked it properly yet," Ethan countered. "But I think we can." They called it VentureLink, and Ethan left Meridian Capital to pursue it full-time. The transition wasn't easy. Without his prestigious title, some doors that had always been open suddenly closed. Fundraising proved more difficult than anticipated. His father called his decision a temporary midlife crisis. Despite Ethan being only 20-9 by their second year of operation, VentureLink had a functional platform and a small but growing user base. What they needed now was significant capital investment to scale and regulatory approval for their more innovative features. "We need to impress Founders Fund," Trevor said during a strategy session. "Their backing would give us credibility." "With other investors, I've secured us a meeting," Ethan replied, straightening his tie habit from his Meridian days that hadn't quite faded. Next Thursday at their San Francisco office. What Ethan didn't know was that Founders Fund had recently formed a strategic partnership with WealthBridge for their Emerging Markets Initiative. The meeting would be attended by their investment committee and by WealthBridge's CEO as a special advisor on fintech innovations. As Ethan boarded the flight to San Francisco, his mind was occupied with pitch decks and valuation models. The last person he expected to encounter was the small-town girl whose ambitions he had once so carelessly dismissed. The wheel of fortune had turned. Their paths diverged for 7 years, were about to intersect in the most unexpected way. The unexpected reunion. The Founders Fund headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower in San Francisco's financial district. Floor 2 ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the bay, a visual reminder of the company's expansive influence in the venture capital world. Ethan straightened his tie for the 3rd time as he and Trevor waited in the reception area. Their presentation materials were impeccable, their financial projections conservative yet promising. After months of preparation, this was VentureLink's moment. "Stop fidgeting," Trevor whispered. "You look like you're about to face a firing." "Squalled. Just focused," Ethan replied, though in truth his stomach was in knots. Their startup had reached a critical juncture without this funding. They'd struggled to survive another quarter. A sleek glass door opened, and a woman with a professional smile approached. "Mr. Parker, Mr. Collins, the committee is ready for you." They followed her into a conference room where 5 people sat around a polished table. 4 men in expensive suits nodded in greeting. But Ethan's attention was immediately drawn to the woman at the far end or back to them as she finished. A phone call. Dark hair swept into an elegant knot. "Gentlemen, welcome," said Gregory Whitman, Founders Fund's managing partner. "Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our special advisor on fintech innovations." The woman turned around. Ethan felt the world tilt beneath him. Camila Hernandez, 7 years, had transformed the earnest college student into someone entirely different and yet instantly recognizable. Her features were the same, but now framed by an aura of unmistakable authority. She wore a tailored burgundy suit that conveyed both power and originality. A contrast to the conservative navy and charcoal surrounding her, their eyes met. For a fleeting second, surprise registered on her face before smoothing into professional composure. "Camila Hernandez, CEO of Wealthbridge." She introduced herself, voice steady. "We're partnering with Founders Fund on several initiatives." Trevor stepped forward to shake her hand, completely unaware of the history crackling in the air between his partner and this unexpected presence. "Trevor Collins. Your work in financial inclusion is revolutionary." "Thank you," she replied, her gaze sliding back to Ethan. "Mr. Parker, it's been some time." Ethan found his voice. "Indeed it has. Your success is impressive." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "How kind of you to notice." The undercurrent of their exchange was lost on everyone else in the room as they took their seats. Ethan struggled to recalibrate. The Camila he remembered, dedicated but uncertain, had been replaced by this self-possessed woman whose company valuation likely dwarfed their funding request by orders of magnitude. "Let's get started," said Whitman. "You have 20 minutes to present your concept." Trevor launched into their introduction while Ethan tried to focus. He advanced through the slides mechanically, explaining VentureLink's market position and growth strategy, but his usual confidence had deserted him. Every time he glanced up, Camila was watching with inscrutable attention, occasionally making notes. Halfway through the presentation, she interrupted with her first question. "Your regulatory compliance strategy seems optimistic," she observed, tapping her pen against her notepad. "Particularly regarding your plan to open investment opportunities to non-accredited investors." Ethan cleared his throat. "We've consulted extensively with regulatory experts. I'm familiar with the current SEC framework," Camila continued. "Wealthbridge navigated similar challenges. The approach you're outlining would likely require a 2-year approval process, minimum." Her assessment was precise and likely accurate, exposing a weakness in their timeline that Ethan had hoped wouldn't be noticed. He watched 7 months of projected revenue evaporate in an instant. "We're prepared for regulatory hurdles," he countered, forcing confidence into his voice. "Our legal team has identified alternative pathways, which would significantly increase your compliance costs," she finished for him, "by approximately 30%, based on our experience." The presentation continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Every claim Ethan made was met with incisive questions. Not hostile, but unflinchingly thorough. Camila didn't just understand their business model. In some ways, she seemed to understand it better than they did themselves. When they reached their funding requests, $7 million for a 12% equity stake, Whitman glanced at Camila. Your thoughts, Ms. Hernandez? She set down her pen deliberately. The concept has merit, the market need is genuine. But the execution plan is flawed, and the valuation is ambitious given the regulatory uncertainties. She looked directly at Ethan. I believe in funding vision, but vision must be paired with realistic self-assessment. The words echoed there. College passed with surgical precision. The meeting concluded with polite handshakes, and the Standard will be in touch. As they gathered their materials, Whitman pulled Camila aside for a private conversation. Ethan watched them from the corner of his eye, their body language suggesting serious discussion. In the elevator down, Trevor let out a long breath. That was brutal. Who was that woman? Ain't. She dissected our entire business model like she'd been studying it for months. Ethan stared at the descending floor numbers. An old acquaintance from college. Well, your old acquaintance just torpedoed our chances with Founders Fund, Trevor said bitterly. We need to rethink our entire approach. As they reached the lobby, Ethan's phone chimed with a message from an unknown number. For Seasons. Lobby bar. 7 p.m. We should talk. The small-town girl with no big ambitions had just demonstrated exactly how wrong he had been. And apparently their conversation was far from over. Professional reckoning, the Four Seasons lobby bar exuded understated luxury amber lighting, plush seating, and discreet service. And it was the kind of place where business deals were sealed with handshakes worth millions and where privacy came. At a premium price, Ethan arrived 15 minutes early, ordering a scotch to steady his nerves. The afternoon's pitch meeting replayed in his mind like a slow-motion car crash. Years of work, countless sacrifices, and their company's future all potentially derailed because of a chance encounter with his past at precisely 7 p.m. Camila entered. She had changed from her burgundy suit into a sleek black dress, but her commanding presence remained unchanged. Heads turned subtly as she crossed the room, not because she demanded attention, but because she naturally drew it. You're punctual, she noted, sliding into the seat across from him. That's new. Ethan managed a tight smile. People change, some aspects more than others. She ordered a sparkling water with lime, then turned those perceptive eyes on him. Your pitch today, it wasn't what I expected, meaning it was good, Ethan, the core concept at least. She leaned back slightly. VentureLink addresses a genuine market gap. Your platform could democratize venture capital in meaningful ways. He studied her, searching for condescension but finding none. You dismantled it in front of founders. Fund. I evaluated it honestly. Her voice remained even. That's my job. Concept has promise, but your implementation strategy is fundamentally flawed. You're underestimating regulatory hurdles, overvaluing pre-revenue projections, and your customer acquisition costs are wildly optimistic. The waiter delivered her water, providing a momentary reprieve from her assessment. When he departed, Ethan leaned forward. Why am I here, Camila? We receive another lecture on my shortcomings? Something flickered across her expression, perhaps. Annoyance, perhaps something else? You're here because I convinced Whitman not to reject your proposal outright. Ain't this caught him off guard? Founders Fund won't be funding VentureLink, not as it currently stands, she explained. But I've proposed an alternative arrangement. She reached into her sleek leather portfolio and slid a document across the table. Ethan scanned the first page, his confusion mounting. It says ... a partnership proposal. Between VentureLink and WealthBridge, Camila nodded. Your platform technology complements our financial inclusion mission. We've been developing something similar internally, but your solution is more elegant in several aspects. Ethan flipped through the pages, his finance background automatically processing the terms. WealthBridge would acquire a 40% stake in VentureLink, providing $10 million in immediate funding, more than they'd requested from Founders Fund. In exchange, VentureLink would integrate with WealthBridge's existing infrastructure and adapt their regulatory compliance framework. This is generous, he admitted cautiously, almost suspiciously so. She smiled slightly. It's not charity, Ethan. It's business. VentureLink solves a technical challenge we've been wrestling with for 18 months. This accelerates our timeline by at least a year. And the catch? 2 conditions. She raised one finger. First, you implement our regulatory compliance framework without modification. Our legal team has already secured the necessary approvals. That made sense. Her second finger rose. And you step down as CEO. The words landed like a physical blow. Excuse me. You remain as Chief Strategy Officer. Your financial expertise is valuable. But Trevor Collins becomes CEO. Her expression remained impassive. He has the technical vision to execute this partnership successfully. Ethan felt heat rising in his face. This is personal. No, she countered firmly. This is professional. Your presentation today revealed a pattern I've observed in your leadership approach. Prioritizing appearance over substance, confidence over careful planning. VentureLink needs meticulous execution, not charismatic pitches. He stared at her, searching for vindictiveness, but finding only clear-eyed assessment. The realization dawned slowly this wasn't revenge. It was genuinely her professional judgment. Trevor doesn't know about our history, he said finally. And he doesn't need to. She took a sip of her water. This decision isn't about Westridge University or anything that happened 7 years ago. It's about what's best for both our companies. Now, the silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken history. You've done remarkably well, Ethan said at last, genuine admiration in his voice. Wealthbridge is revolutionary. Something softened in her expression. Thank you. I never expected to find myself on the other side of your boardroom table. You never thought I'd have a boardroom. The observation wasn't bitter, just matter of fact. Ethan swirled the remaining scotch in his glass. I was wrong about you. Spectacularly wrong. Yes, she agreed simply. You were. Another silence. But this one felt different, clearer, as if a long-standing barrier had finally been acknowledged. I'll need to discuss this with Trevor, Ethan said, tapping the proposal. Of course you have until Friday. Portfolio. For what it's worth, I think this partnership could be extraordinary. Your financial insight combined with Trevor's technical execution and Wealthbridge's market position, we could genuinely transform access to capital. As she stood to leave, Ethan found himself rising as well. Camila, he hesitated, suddenly uncertain what to say. I'm sorry. For everything. It's not just because you're successful now, but because you deserved better then. She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the sincerity of his words. Apology accepted, she said finally. Though I should thank you in a way? Thank me. A small, genuine smile crossed her face. That night at the Sigma Phi party became fuel. Every time someone underestimated me. Every time a door closed because I didn't have the right connections or the right background, I remembered your words and pushed harder. With that, she extended her hand professionally. I look forward to your decision, Ethan. He shook her hand, feeling the surreal quality of the moment. The small-town girl he had once dismissed was now offering him professional salvation in her terms. As Camila walked away, Ethan remained standing, the partnership proposal in his hand, and a profound sense of both humility and possibility settling. Over him, the wheel had turned full circle, but perhaps it wasn't finished turning yet. Beyond the boardroom 6, months into the Wealthbridge VentureLink partnership, the integration was proceeding more smoothly than either company had anticipated. The newly renovated offices in San Francisco's Mission District buzzed with the energy of collaboration as teams from both companies worked to create something greater than either could have built alone. Ethan settled into his role as Chief Strategy Officer with surprising contentment. Free from the pressures of being CEO, he found himself reconnecting with the aspects of finance that had originally drawn him to the field-anizing market opportunities, structuring deals, and mapping expansion strategies. Trevor thrived in the CEO position, his technical vision complementing Camila's market expertise. It was a Tuesday evening when Ethan found himself alone in the conference room, surrounded by spreadsheets projecting their international expansion. The office had quieted, most employees having departed hours earlier. Still chasing numbers? Camila's voice came from the doorway. He looked up, surprised. Just finalizing the Singapore projections for tomorrow's board meeting, she entered. Setting down 2 cups of coffee before taking a seat across from him. I've been reviewing your Southeast Asia strategy. It's impressive. High praise coming from you, he replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. Though I notice you've made some adjustments to my timeline, just minor refinements. She smiled slightly. Your instincts were sound. Over the past months, they had developed a professional rhythm, their interactions cordial but carefully maintained within business boundaries. Neither had referenced their shared past or the apology exchange that night at the Four Seasons. The regulatory approval came through. Today, Camila said, changing the subject. We can launch the pilot program next month. Ethan nodded appreciatively. That's 3 months ahead of schedule. Your compliance framework modifications made the difference. She tilted her head, studying him. You've changed, Ethan, the observation hung in the air between them, opening a door to territory beyond quarterly projections and market expansion strategies. Failure is an effective teacher, he replied after a moment. When Meridian Capital passed me over for partner despite my performance, it was humbling. Starting VentureLink was terrifying. Nearly losing it was worse. Yet you accepted the partnership terms without argument, she noted, including stepping down as CEO. Ethan met her gaze directly. Because you were right. Trevor is a better CEO. For where VentureLink needs to go now? He paused. 7 years ago, I couldn't have admitted that. Something shifted in her expression, a softening, perhaps even respect. That's growth. Speaking of growth, he ventured, Wealthbridge's expansion into rural communities has been remarkable, especially the microfinance program in places like Pinewood. A genuine smile transformed her face. That's always been the heart of it for me. My father struggled for years with predatory lending in Pinewood, creating alternatives that actually serve those communities instead of extracting from them. That's why I built Wealthbridge. What's what you talked about in college, Ethan realized aloud. Those ideas you shared that I called cute but impractical, she finished for him. But without bitterness. Yes. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable but reflective too. People measuring the distance between who they had been and who they had become. Would you like to get dinner? Ethan asked suddenly. Not to discuss work? Surprise flickered across her face. Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Parker? I'm asking for a chance to know who Camila Hernandez is now, he answered honestly. Beyond the boardroom. She considered him for a long moment. I'm not the same person you knew in college. I would hope not. Neither am I. After what seemed like an eternity, she nodded. There's a small Peruvian place near my apartment. Authentic ceviche, family-owned. Very different from the corporate restaurants you probably frequent. Sounds perfect. 2 weeks later, they sat across from each other at a small corner table in the Peruvian restaurant. The dining room was modest but warm, filled with the aromas of cilantro, lime, and seafood. Family photos lined the walls, and the owner greeted Camila by name when they arrived. I've been coming here since I moved to San Francisco, she explained. As they shared plates of perfectly prepared ceviche and lomo saltado, it reminds me of my grandmother's cooking. Over dinner, corporate titles and balance sheets fell away. Ethan learned about Camila's journey after Westridge, the 3 jobs she'd worked simultaneously to save startup capital.
Ow.
The night spent sleeping on her office floor, the 6 consecutive rejections from venture capitalists before securing her first real funding. What kept you going? He asked, genuinely curious. She considered the question. Stubbornness, partly, she admitted with a small laugh, but mostly purpose. I believed in what I was building, not just as a business, but as a mission. As weeks turned into months, their relationship evolved cautiously. They discovered shared interests beyond finance, mutual love for obscure documentaries, early morning hikes, and hole-into-wall restaurants across the city. Their conversations ranged from cryptocurrency regulation to childhood memories, gradually building a foundation different from what they'd had in college. You never asked about my relationships after Westridge, Ethan observed one evening as they walked along the marina after dinner. I figured that was your business, she replied, watching the lights of the Golden Gate Bridge shimmer in the distance. There were a Funan, lasting more than a year. He glanced at her profile. Career always came first. Same, she acknowledged, though mine failed for different reasons. Most men I dated couldn't handle my success. Their loss, Ethan said simply. She turned to him then, searching his face. Is that why we're here now? Because you finally see me as successful enough to be worthy? The question was direct, without accusation but requiring honesty. No, he answered carefully. We're here because I finally became worthy of seeing you clearly, success or not. A year after the partnership began, VentureLink WealthBridge launched their integrated platform globally. Press coverage was extensive, highlighting the revolutionary approach to democratizing investment opportunities while ensuring financial inclusion. At the launch party, industry leaders and investors mingled in WealthBridge's headquarters, celebrating what financial media had dubbed the most innovative fintech collaboration of the decade. Amid the celebration, Ethan found Camila on the rooftop terrace, momentarily escaped from the crowd. Congratulations, CEO Hernandez, he said, joining her at the railing. Your vision made this possible, she smiled, the city lights illuminating her face. Our vision? This partnership has become more than either of us imagined. Not just the business partnership, he said quietly. She turned to face him fully. No, not just the business. I've been thinking about what you said that night at Sigma Phi, Ethan. Admitted about respect? That was a lifetime ago. But you were right. Real relationships, personal or professional, have to be built on mutual respect. He took her hand carefully. I respect who you are, Camila. You've always been. Even when I was too blind to see it. She studied their intertwined fingers. I respect who you've become. The man who could step back from his ego for the greater good of what we're building. The sounds of the party continued below them, but on the terrace, a different kind. A celebration was unfolding, one of reconciliation and new beginnings. Small-town girl with no big ambitions, she echoed his long-ago words with gentle irony. The most brilliant, determined woman I've ever known, he corrected, drawing her closer as they stood together overlooking the city where both had found their paths. Their kiss wasn't an ending, but a beginning, a partnership built not on the painful history they shared, but on the respect they had earned and the future they could now envision together. Below them, their combined companies celebrated a business triumph. Above, on the quiet rooftop, Camila and Ethan celebrated something more profound, the journey that had brought them from shattered promises to a foundation strong enough to build upon. Beyond balance sheets and boardrooms, into something genuine and lasting in the end. It wasn't about redemption or forgiveness, but growth to people who had finally become the best versions of themselves, ready to write a new chapter together.